Hi everyone, it's Christy over at Crafty Christie's Creations. Today I have this super adorable pumpkin layered mandala napkin holder for you, just in time for all your fall decor. So as you can see, it's a standalone piece. It's not very wide, but it can hold, I've got just regular size napkins in here. And this is all cut on 8.5 by 11 inch paper. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. As you can see, I already put one side together. I did this side with liquid glue, and the one that I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna end up using some foam adhesive and then maybe some of these little glue dot pieces just to show you the difference of the look that you can get depending on how you put these pieces together. And then the other thing I want to point out is that each layer is going to have a mirror image of it. So, you know, this one has a score lines down here and this one's here. So that way when you go to put them together, the outsides will look on the same, they'll be on the same side instead of being opposites. So you will see that everything is mirrored and they'll be opposite directions. So you'll get two of everything. One is a left side and one is a right side. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're just gonna start by decorating the front of this. And like I said, I am going to be using some foam on this one. So you'll have to bear with me while I cut all these pieces. So this is, I think, maybe 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch thick. And the nice part is that I can just cut it down to size, whatever I need. All right, so this is our first layer. And let's go ahead and just lay it down. And it's gonna fit, it's gonna butt up flush against the edge here and then this edge. And this part is just gonna lay right around here. So that's how I'm going to center this on here, and the rest should just fall into place. So I'm really gonna just focus on that piece. So now that I know how it goes, let's flip it over the correct side, and we're gonna put these on all of the petals. Okay, now like I was saying, I am going to line up this part here through the edge of the stem, and then that's how I'm going to know everything else will fall right into place. Okay. And then I'm just gonna tap around, get all those spots glued down, taped down, I guess. All right, and I don't really feel like there is a low spot anywhere, so that's good. All right, that's the first layer. And then the next layer comes with 2 pieces. So we've got the center one that's gonna lay here, and you're just gonna eyeball it to make sure that it fits correctly. And it's symmetrical all the way around. And then we've got this piece here that is going to, again, lay flush with this edge. So it'll lay flush on that edge, and then you'll have the extra on the side. So that's how this part's gonna go. So I'm gonna start with this little piece and use up some more of my tiny little pieces that I made. I do think when these are raised, it's harder for me to get things lined up flush because of the raise, and it leaves a shadow. And I mean, that's just my personal issue. But, you know, some people might find this easier than trying to deal with glue. So again, I'm just gonna line this piece up flush on this edge, best that I can. And then when I think I've got it where I want it, go ahead and press those down. And then we'll go ahead and work on our bigger piece here. Once you've got the tape all over that, go ahead and center it and lay it down flat. And then we'll go ahead and add more of the foam tape to the next piece. This one is a little bit thinner, so I've cut those pieces even smaller. If this is too small for your foam tape, go ahead and start using those glue dots to make this a lot easier for you. All right, let's go ahead and attach this piece. So like I said, this part here is going to be flush in the center, and as you can see here, it's flush here, and then it's flush up here on the top corners, and it's also going to be in between these layers. So each petal here should go in between these ones. So I'm actually going to turn this upside down because I think these top pieces are harder to get in the right position. And I'm just going to worry about them. So what I'm looking at is getting this curved piece right here should be right on that piece right there. So that's what I'm going to focus on when I go to set this in place. And once I get that flushed up right there, everything else should fall into place. Then when you turn it back around, this is needs a little nudge. Okay, and then those pieces are now flush there. And now this little guy is really thin, and he's gonna sit flush up here. They all get flushed up against this corner here, so that's how you know, and then it should follow that rounded edge there, and that's how that one's gonna sit. Now, as you can see, and really I didn't need to put foam dots on the end here, so if you really wanted this to stand up, you don't need to put in there, but I kind of like having them pushed down a little bit. But on this one, I'm just gonna put some stuff behind here, and I'm gonna leave these pieces open. And I am gonna switch to my little foam gels, or my little glue dots, because they're clear and I can make them and just kind of roll them in a ball and make them whatever size I need. So I'm just gonna put a couple little spots here. I like these, they stick really well. And since they're clear, you know, you can't really put them in a bad space because you shouldn't really see them because they don't exactly, you know, it's not like glue. It's not going to squish out the edges really. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do, just a couple little dots of it. And I like to spin this around to face me so I can make sure that I get things squared up how I want it. So again, I'm going to square up on this edge and down this side here. And once I have that set, and following along that curve, I'm just going to press those pieces down. And it's going to sit just like that. Okay. Now we've got our last layer, which is this really thin and delicate piece. So this one is just gonna sit right in the center. And then this piece is gonna, again, follow that curve on the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue on with my little foam pieces here. Oh, and I have one little spot that didn't completely come out. There we go. And the other thing about this one, so I had a little bit of trouble cutting this one, especially these little spots. So I'm using the Silhouette Cameo, and I went ahead and I'm doing this on 80-pound cardstock, and I turned my speed down to 2, and I used the overcut, and that really made a big difference, making those 2 changes just to cut these little tiny intricate pieces. Actually, again, I probably don't need it out on the edges. I probably just really need it around this circle, because the rest is going to be layered and sticking out. So I've literally used like half of, not even half, I've used like just a pinch of one little dot, and you know, I'm using that for all of these, so you really don't need a lot. So these little glue dots go a very long way. One more little spot right there. Okay, and that's all I'm gonna do. So like I said, this part you're just gonna center up. Your little points here are going to go inside of these points. Again, you're gonna be alternating between these two and inside of this one. And then you wanna center up around this inner circle. And if you have it right, the top row of cutouts should come out this color, and your inner row should show this inner color. It's not that easy to see when you're going to lay it down, and pardon my head while I get this set up correctly. But I just wanted to make sure I could see those inner colors. And then when you get it set down in place, go ahead and just press those little spots. And so, I mean, you could come in and put some under these little edges. You'd have to be really careful to make sure they're actually going to meet with spots. So I just left them alone. And now we're going to go ahead and add this one. This is probably the most intricate piece. So again, it's just going to butt up against this edge. And then follow that curve down. There's not much to it. So you can see with it sitting there, there's really not that many places to even put any glue. I'm just going to put it on these couple ridges and then on those little intersections there, and that's it. So grabbing the tiniest little bit as I can. Again, this is why I like these little glue dots, because they're clear. So if I put too much, you're not even going to notice. And I am going to put some out on this singleton out here, just so I can get it to tack down so it doesn't go flying away and rip. Okay. So that's all I'm going to do. And I've got too much on there, and it's now stuck to my table. There. So just being careful when you go to pick it up if it's sticking to other things that you don't rip it. All right, so again, I'm going to line up on this corner. And I'm just going to let it follow that curve and lay down those couple pieces right there. And that's it. All right, so we've got these pieces all assembled. Now you can see a totally different look that you get with things being popped up versus being flat. And even still, I can tell this is not, that is not quite centered, but oh well, it'll work. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the real assembly part. And this is where things get a little bit tricky. So on here, and they're a little bit difficult to see because you have everything on, but there is a score line right here. And then they're very small, but on both sides you have two score lines. So I have one here, and then I have one here. So the ones on the side go for your little jagged teeth. Those are your markers to show you where to line up the top tooth and then where the bottom tooth should go. And the teeth are actually going to go on the inside. So that is just a guide. And then this bottom score mark on kind of on top of that line is where this side piece is. This is going to be, the bottom piece is going to sit in here to hold up your napkins. So that's going to fit there. What I've noticed with this one is, you know, if your cardstock's not really thick, you can hold it up to the light and you'll be able to see through to see where that line is. But I think even just kind of eyeballing it, and mostly just to know that like it's not going to be flush at the bottom, it's up just a smidge. So that's how we're going to use that. And so I'm going to pull out my glue here. And I think the easiest thing is going to be to start by putting this on the center here. So now, like I said, you know, you want to be up a little bit. I do my score lines on 0 so they don't necessarily cut through. But you always have the option, you know, you can put like a little crease in there. So now I can see where that little crease is, and then I want this edge to line up on that crease. So it's gonna fold this way and then it'll fold out. So this is gonna line up on that line. So let's go ahead and put some glue. That bottle's probably not gonna work. So I don't need a lot of glue. I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue on here, just enough to get it to stick. Okay, so like I said, I've got that little crease line there that I just made. I want the bottom part to line up on top of that crease line. So I'm just gonna find my little crease here. You know what, to help you see what I'm talking about, I'm just gonna put a little line. So that's my crease line. I'm gonna put this crease on that crease. So I'm just pinching this down, and I'm just gonna lay it right on top of that line. And then I'm just gonna try to center it left and right. And so this is on the inside. No one's going to see this when it's all assembled. So if things are a little messy, it's not a big deal. Okay, we've got that one on there. All right, and now we're gonna do the same thing with this other side. So again, I've got my little score line there. The other thing you can do, like if you're like me and you don't make really thick score lines, you could take like an X-Acto knife, and I'm just gonna punch all the way through in one little spot. And I think that this is busy enough that you won't really even notice that little spot. And then now I know where that line is, so I can go ahead and go across, and that's where my other piece is going to sit. And then that's gonna sit just like that. So again, I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue. Doesn't need a whole lot. I'm gonna line that up and try to line it up left and right. And gently press that down, especially if you've got your papers layered. You may want to do this part first, just this inner piece, because then you could take it and you can lay it out like this and press those pieces down. Okay, so we've got that all assembled. And now for the kind of complicated part. So just so that you can see where my little score lines are, I'm gonna go ahead and draw these in for you as well. And they're gonna be in the same place on the other side. So yes, your score lines are on the outside, even though what we're using is actually on the inside. Okay, so I've got my little lines on there. Now what you're gonna do, I've already folded my teeth on the score lines here. And this piece is going to sit on the side and it's gonna go this way. So what you might wanna do before you get started is train your paper a little bit. So you take your pencil or anything round and we're gonna train it this direction. We don't want it to bend this way, we want it to bend this way. So I'm just gonna take this and just kind of roll it a little bit. And trying not to rip the teeth. And I'm just trying to give it a little roll. So you can see it's got a little curve to it, and we can go ahead and do that with the other one. So if you've got your teeth going in, you know, it needs to bulk out this way. So flatten those teeth back out. And take your pencil. Might be easier to just do it on the table and just kind of hold one end and just kind of lift while you push. And then you can see that gave it a little bit, just a little bit. And we don't need a lot, and that will help just get it started while we go ahead and assemble this. So if this is the first time you're doing anything with a curve like this, you know, this is, I'm not gonna lie, this part is a little bit of a challenge. So we are gonna figure out the best way to do this together. First part is trying to find something that maybe you can balance this on, just so you can see better what I'm doing. Okay, that's probably the best I'm gonna get. So I've got my little teeth. I'm gonna start with just the top one, and I'm gonna just put a touch of glue on there. It doesn't matter if you start on the left side or the right side, it just doesn't. Okay friends, I'm so sorry you have missed out on some of how to do this because I am having some technical issues today. So let me just recap how I did this. So when I started here, I took my first tab, and what I did is just put glue on this one tab, and then I flipped it over and I lined up this edge right with my little score line on the front, and then I held and glued down just my first tab to get things started, okay? And then what I did was I flipped it back over, and then I put glue on the next two tabs. With it flipped over, I pushed down, and I pushed this way to push the edge where this score line is to get pushed right to this edge here of the pumpkin so that things are flush. So now we're just going to continue on. I'm going to peel back these few here, and I'm going to put just a smidge of glue on the next two, maybe three tabs. I don't recommend doing any more than 2 or 3 at a time. So again, I've put a little glue on there. I'm going to raise this up. I'm going to press these down to the back here, and then as I'm looking, I'm holding this up and I'm pushing towards the edge. So if I do it this way so you can better see. So to just hold that line nicely, or if I need to, I can always pull those tabs further in. But the goal is to have the score line here flush against the edge here. So that's how I do that, is by manipulating where I'm pressing those tabs. So once I have that in the right spot that I want it, I'm just gonna go ahead and press down and hold for a couple of seconds so that those get good and attached. And then, you know, you can always flip it over, check your work, make sure everything looks good. And then you will notice as you go along, this edge of the paper will now end up flush with this score mark here. And that's how you're gonna go about doing this. So that's how I did this side. And you can see now it has that nice curve because one, we trained it before we started, And then with these little tabs, pressing it and pushing it out to the edge, that's how we get a nice flush edge. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish here on this side. I'm gonna go ahead and do the next 2 little tabs, and then we'll do the last 2. So again, I'm pressing down, and then I'm also using my thumb to press it out towards the edge of the pumpkin. So that way we get that nice flush edge, that nice crisp line here. Hold that for a few seconds, and then I've just got my last little guy here. I'm just gonna put a touch of glue on him, and I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm just gonna press it down. And now because this is the last one, I am gonna flip it up so that I can check to see that I'm flush here on the edge and that I'm also right at that score line, which I am. So everything worked out well, and I'm just gonna press that down. Okay, so you can see now I've got my 2 sides. See how it's got that nice curve to them? They're not gonna be straight anymore. And now what we're gonna do is bring this side over. So the point of doing all that is so when you go to stand it up, when it stands up nice and straight, we have those score lines in place to keep it level. So that way when it's standing, everything is nice and symmetrical and we're not cockeyed, leaning one direction or the other. So now we're gonna go ahead, it doesn't matter which side you start on, but we're gonna do the same thing. So I'm just gonna put glue on my first little tab here, and I'm going to take it and line it up with my score line. So I'm just lining up the top edge of my tab with that score line, and then I'm also making the curve flush with that piece. And so since this is the first one, I'm just gonna get it lined up where I want it. It's a little bit more difficult just to get that first one started, and then I'm just gonna pinch. And I'm just gonna hold that for a second or 2 so it gets adhered nice and well. And that looks good. So there's a couple different ways that you can go about doing this. It's a little more difficult on the second side. So you can either just kind of work from this, you know, the angles are kind of funny, but you can just press these down and stick some glue in there. You know, you just kind of do whatever you need to, or if you find it easier to work from the inside, you can also do that as well. But I think what I'm gonna do is try to just pull some of these out a little bit. I'm putting glue on quite a few, just so that, actually I'm gonna put glue on all of these. Because this paper is kind of already trained and we have one side done already, as I'm putting that on there, I'm gonna line it up with this edge and try to get that curve nice. And I think it is going to be easier to flip it over and work from the inside. So I've just got a few, I've got my thumb up in there against these pieces and I'm pressing up this way. And I'm also pressing that direction to get it where I want it so that everything is nice and flush. And then if you notice you're not quite there, you can always move things around before it's completely sealed together. It's a lot harder when I'm trying to figure out how to show you and explain this to you at the same time. So I went ahead and just put the glue on all of them, and I'm just trying to take my time and pinch them together and make sure that seam is right where I want it. And then what you could do as well is lay that side flat. And I'm gonna take my pencil in here and I'm gonna use that pencil to help press down, especially on those center ones that I can't quite reach. So I'm using that to press down and out to get that nice curve. Okay. Okay, so that side's done. And you can see now, you know, things are holding up a lot better now. Things want to balance, which is great. So now we just got this last side. So again, I'm just gonna put glue on that first little tab to get things started. You can see my score lines there. The hard part is trying to get a hold of everything. So I'm going to make this line flush against that score line. I think it's easier just to put it on the table. Once you kind of have an idea of where it needs to be, I need to put a little more glue on there. I think it's easier to help use the table and use that pencil as you need it. But I just want to show you. So I've got that first one and I'm just going to pinch it here, right in this edge. And I'm just pinching and holding and getting that to adhere nicely before I move on to the rest. Okay. And of course the last one's always the hardest. So what I think I'm gonna do here is grab a scrap piece of paper and I'm going to put some glue on my scrap piece of paper. And I'm just gonna take that, that's way too much, glue up my fingers a bit. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that and slide that under there to put glue on all those tabs. And then as I go to press, again, using my finger or you can use the pencil, you know, you can, I'm mostly just focusing on kind of the top and the bottom to get the curve right, and I'm just pressing down and then I'm pressing those tabs this direction to make it nice and flush. And then once I have the corners in the correct place, which is really what I'm worried about right now, because that, if you get the corners in the right place, the rest of the shape will just fall into place. So I'm just gonna get this little corner here. And you may just have to hold it for a good little bit to really get it to adhere. And then I can go in while I'm still, so I'm using this hand to press down, to kind of hold that paper down, and then I'm gonna press down with my pencil on those tabs to help get it into place. And you can see that that did a pretty good job there. All right, so now we are all put together and it stands up nicely. So I just want to show you. So this fits just, these are just regular, I don't know, I think they were 6.5 or 5.5 by 6.5 inch napkins. And then you will see that these just fit, you know, you can do them that way and they'll fit that, like that, or as you know, you can resize this file. I cut everything on 8.5 by 11 paper. But you can see your corners still stick out. That's why we put a bottom on there, so that to hold it in, and then the sides help hold it. But you can see that they'll just sit in there. And then that is your beautiful table decoration for your fall season. And you can see the difference. This is your flat side, and then this is what it looks like when you go ahead and pop up for dimension. And then if you have a really good pencil eraser, I can't even see this, this one I can see, but some of these score marks, you can't even really see where I put them on there, but then you can go back through. Like this side I did pretty dark so you could see what we were doing. But now I can come back through and I can just lightly erase those areas. You don't want to press too hard. You're better off just going over it multiple times, barely pressing, so that way you don't peel away any of the paper. But now you can see I got rid of those score lines and you can't even see those. And that is how you assemble our lovely pumpkin, sunflower, stacked mandala napkin holder for fall.